Young, and the Restless spoilers Friday's full episodes the 6th of March 2026. The tension building across Genoa City is reaching a dangerous turning point as several powerful players begin moving their pieces across the board. Each one pursuing a different vision of victory while unknowingly stepping deeper into Victor Newman's expanding web of control. Victor has never been a man who tolerates losing for long, and the recent power struggles surrounding Newman Enterprises and Chancellor have clearly pushed him toward another ruthless strategy. For Victor, patience has always been a weapon, but when that weapon no longer produces results, he has never hesitated to replace it with something far more aggressive. His newest plan appears to follow that familiar pattern. The patriarch of the Newman dynasty is quietly preparing another calculated move. One that may appear shocking on the surface but makes perfect sense within the cold logic of his long-standing philosophy. In Genoa City, power is never given back willingly. It must be taken, controlled, and defended by any means necessary. While Victor prepares his next strike, the people around him find themselves pulled into conflicts that are both personal and strategic. Billy Abbott, already caught in the middle of several emotional and corporate battles, is beginning to look at the situation with growing suspicion. Billy has spent enough time navigating the unpredictable alliances of Genoa City to recognize when something feels wrong. Recently his attention has turned toward Phyllis Summers, whose sudden rise to power and uncertain loyalties have made her one of the most unpredictable figures in the current crisis. Billy cannot shake the feeling that Phyllis may be playing a deeper game than anyone else realizes. Her actions do not always align with her words, and that inconsistency alone is enough to make Billy wary. He understands better than most that Phyllis has always thrived in chaos, often finding ways to turn dangerous situations into opportunities for herself. The possibility that she might be manipulating events surrounding Newman Enterprises, Victor, and the Abbott family forces Billy to reconsider everything he thought he understood about the unfolding conflict. At the same time, another conversation is quietly taking place that could determine the future of several relationships and possibly the fate of one of Genoa City's most powerful corporations. Cain, who has recently emerged as an unexpected voice of persuasion and strategy, finds himself in a delicate position. Cain understands that the situation surrounding Phyllis, Newman Enterprises, and the growing tensions between the city's most powerful families cannot simply be solved through confrontation. Instead, he believes that the key to changing the outcome may lie in reconciliation rather than further conflict. That belief leads him to a conversation with Daniel Romalotti, a man who has spent years struggling with the complicated legacy of his mother's actions. Daniel arrives aboard Cain's train carrying the weight of uncertainty with him. The journey itself symbolizes more than just travel. It represents a transition between anger and possibility, between resentment and the fragile hope that old wounds might finally begin to heal. Cain greets him with cautious optimism, convinced that Daniel may hold the key to shifting the balance of the entire situation. According to Cain, there is reason to believe that Phyllis may be ready to reconsider her position and possibly return Newman Enterprises to Victor. For Cain, this possibility is not simply about corporate ownership or financial influence. It is about restoring a sense of emotional stability that has been missing from Phyllis's life for years. Cain believes that Phyllis's relentless pursuit of power has always been fueled by something deeper than ambition. Beneath her sharp instincts and fearless determination lies a woman who has spent much of her life fighting the fear of being alone. Cain tries to explain this perspective to Daniel with a mixture of honesty and persuasion. In his view, Phyllis's recent actions may be less about conquering Genoa City and more about filling an emotional void that she has never truly escaped. He points out that victory means very little if it leaves her completely isolated from the two people who matter most to her. Cain reminds Daniel that without him and Summer standing beside her, any triumph Phyllis achieves will ultimately feel hollow. Power, wealth, and influence cannot replace the simple comfort of knowing that her children still believe in her. Cain argues that if Daniel and Summer can find a way to forgive her, it could trigger the change that everyone hopes for. In that scenario, Phyllis might finally be willing to let go of Newman Enterprises and return it to Victor. Not because she was forced to, but because she realized that the cost of holding onto it was too high. Daniel listens carefully, but his reaction is shaped by years of disappointment and emotional exhaustion. He has heard arguments like this before, each one promising that Phyllis has finally changed or that she has reached a point where she understands the consequences of her actions. Yet time and again those promises have led to the same painful conclusion: Phyllis chasing power while the people who love her struggle to keep up with the damage left behind. When Cain suggests that Phyllis simply needs forgiveness to find her way back, Daniel cannot help but question the sincerity of the entire idea. He wonders if this is truly about healing a broken family or just another carefully designed strategy. Cain may present his plan as a path toward reconciliation, but Daniel has lived long enough with Phyllis's unpredictable behavior to know that good intentions do not always lead to good outcomes. That skepticism leads Daniel to voice the suspicion that lingers in his mind: what if this is just another one of Cain's strategies, another manipulation disguised as compassion? Cain does not deny the strategic element in what he is proposing. In fact, his response is surprisingly direct. From Cain's perspective, strategy and sincerity are not mutually exclusive. If encouraging Daniel to forgive his mother creates the possibility of peace while also influencing the outcome of a corporate battle, then perhaps that combination is exactly what Genoa City needs. Cain sees nothing inherently wrong with using persuasion if the end result could restore stability to several lives at once. Daniel remains unconvinced. For him, the issue is not whether reconciliation would be beneficial but whether it is realistic. In his experience, Phyllis has always been driven by the same relentless ambition, the desire to become the most powerful figure in Genoa City. That desire has often overshadowed every other priority in her life. It has strained her relationships, damaged her reputation, and repeatedly forced her children to question whether they truly matter to her more than her quest for control. Daniel struggles to believe that someone with such a deeply rooted hunger for power would suddenly abandon it simply because forgiveness was offered. Cain, however, refuses to abandon his belief that change is possible. He insists that beneath Phyllis's relentless ambition lies a genuine longing for connection and acceptance. According to Cain, Phyllis is far more unhappy than she allows anyone to see. The victories she has accumulated over the years have never brought the emotional satisfaction she expected. Instead, they have left her standing alone more often than not, surrounded by achievements that feel strangely empty. Cain suggests that Phyllis may finally be reaching a moment of clarity where she understands that power cannot replace the love of her family. Daniel responds with a question that cuts directly to the heart of the matter: does Cain truly believe that Phyllis is that unhappy? The question carries a mixture of skepticism and reluctant curiosity. For Daniel, acknowledging the possibility that his mother might be deeply unhappy would require him to reconsider years of resentment and emotional distance. It would mean accepting that the woman he has struggled to forgive might also be a person desperately searching for redemption. Cain answers with calm confidence: if his understanding of Phyllis is correct, then the outcome of this situation could transform multiple lives at once. Phyllis would regain the trust of her children, Daniel could finally begin repairing his relationship with his mother, and the destructive conflict surrounding Newman Enterprises could come to an end. In Cain's mind, the solution is almost elegantly simple: forgiveness could unlock a chain reaction that restores balance to the entire situation. Yet Cain knows that Daniel will not make such a decision lightly. Years of disappointment have built a protective wall around Daniel's emotions. Convincing him to lower that wall requires more than persuasive words. It requires a simple but powerful question that forces Daniel to confront the possibility that holding onto anger may be costing him something important. Cain asks him what he truly has to lose by giving his mother one more chance. The question lingers in the air between them, heavy with implication, because in Genoa City, forgiveness is rarely just a personal decision. It is often the catalyst for events that reshape alliances, shift power, and determine who ultimately wins the battles that define the city's future. And as Victor Newman prepares to unleash the next phase of his ruthless strategy, the choice Daniel makes in this moment could influence far more than his relationship with his mother. It could determine whether Phyllis remains a powerful adversary or becomes the unexpected key to ending Victor's latest and most dangerous plan. The atmosphere inside the Newman Ranch grows increasingly tense as the consequences of Victor Newman's expanding strategy begin to ripple through the family. Victoria Newman has been quietly carrying a growing sense of unease for days, unable to shake the fear that something is wrong with her brother. Nick Newman's recent disappearances have not gone unnoticed, and the longer he remains unreachable, the heavier the silence surrounding him becomes. Victoria knows Nick well enough to understand that when he withdraws like this, it usually means he has thrown himself into a dangerous situation that he believes only he can resolve. That knowledge makes waiting unbearable. Even Victor, a man who prides himself on emotional control, is beginning to show signs of impatience as the uncertainty stretches on. The absence of Nick does not simply represent a missing family member, it symbolizes a growing threat that no one fully understands yet. When Nick finally walks through the door, the relief in the room is immediate but quickly replaced by confrontation. Victor's instincts as both a father and a strategist take over instantly. He demands to know where Nick has been, his voice carrying the sharp edge of frustration that has been building while the family waited in the dark. Nick, however, has little patience left for interrogation. He pushes back, asking if they can stop treating his return like a cross-examination. The tension in his response reveals how exhausted he is from the journey he has just completed. Nick explains that he deliberately turned off his phone and disappeared because he needed to travel to Los Angeles in order to track down information about Matt Clark's whereabouts. In his mind, the mission required secrecy and speed, two things that would have been impossible if he had remained connected to everyone's calls and questions. Unfortunately, the trip did not produce the answers he hoped to find. Nick admits that despite his efforts, he came back empty-handed. Matt remains somewhere out there, moving through the shadows with the same unpredictable intensity that has already caused so much concern in Genoa City. The failure to locate him only deepens the uncertainty surrounding the situation. Nick may have risked everything to find Matt, but the man he is hunting continues to stay one step ahead. That reality adds another layer of tension to the already volatile circumstances unfolding around the Newman family. The conversation soon shifts away from Matt and toward another equally complicated problem, Phyllis Summers. Victoria reveals that Phyllis has already begun reshaping the corporate structure within Newman Enterprises. One by one, individuals who were loyal to the Newman family are being removed from their positions. The message behind those decisions is impossible to ignore. Phyllis is consolidating power, ensuring that anyone who might challenge her authority is quietly pushed aside. For Victoria, this behavior confirms what she feared all along. Phyllis is not merely occupying a temporary position within the company, she is actively transforming Newman Enterprises into something that answers to her alone. Nick listens carefully as Victoria describes the changes taking place within the company, and his reaction is filled with quiet resignation. He remarks that if Phyllis is already making moves like this, then Cain Ashby's attempt to persuade her to reconsider her position is unlikely to succeed. Cain may believe that appealing to Phyllis's emotional connection with her children could influence her decisions. But Nick understands how determined Phyllis can be when she believes she has finally secured a position of power. If she truly intends to reshape Newman Enterprises according to her own vision, then convincing her to step aside will not be easy. Victor's response to this discussion reveals that he has already moved beyond the hope that persuasion will solve the problem. He admits that he never placed much faith in the idea that Phyllis could simply be talked into surrendering control. Victor Newman has spent his entire life studying people, and he understands ambition better than most. Phyllis's hunger for influence and recognition is something he recognizes immediately. Rather than waiting for her to voluntarily return the company, Victor has begun preparing an alternative plan, one that is far more forceful and far more dangerous. Nikki Newman senses the gravity in Victor's words immediately. She has watched him orchestrate countless schemes over the years, and she knows that when he describes something as a stronger plan, it rarely involves simple negotiations. Nikki asks him directly what he intends to do, hoping that hearing the details might prevent the situation from escalating further. Victor's answer is both calm and unsettling. He explains that the strategy he is preparing is actually one he should have used from the beginning. The implication behind that statement hangs heavily in the air. Victor is not simply reacting to Phyllis's actions, he is preparing to reclaim what he believes belongs to him using the methods that built the Newman Empire in the first place.